Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of VCTV. I'm your host, Kyle Ellicott, and we've got a good, exciting episode for you today. We've been talking about today's subjects in various pieces over the last few weeks here on VCTV and have now brought together not just the topics, but the experts as well in each of these areas from literally today around the world, coast to coast here in the United States, but globally, north to south, east and west. We've got guests from all over the place to talk about clean tech, and sustainability. And more importantly, green tech, clean tech, environmental tech, and ESG. A lot of different terms, a lot of different buzzwords, but today we're gonna boil all that down for you and talk again about clean tech and sustainability and why this is such an important area to pay attention to. We've got a number of funds, venture funds, that have recently come to light over the past week in this area. Jeff Bezos has a new fund that has just come out. Union Square Ventures out of New York has actually just put together, I believe it's an $800 million raise around this area focused on climate tech as well. And several others are, again, changing their investment thesis to focus on climate, clean, and sustainability technologies and where the future is going to go. So we're going to talk a lot about that and many other subjects today. But before we get started, a big thank you to you, our audience, for tuning in. If you're liking what you hear today, make sure you click that subscribe button to tune into all episodes every day, all day here on VCTV as we bring experts from around the world to talk with you about the latest and not latest happenings in industries, technologies, and regions around the world. So you're up to date, know where to start building and where to place your bets in all areas of your business. And if you'd like to be on a show like today, like our outstanding investors who will be joining us here in just a moment, do reach out to the team and or myself. We'd love to find the right spot for you. That goes for you too, entrepreneurs. There is a virtual stage here on VCTV for you to get up on and pitch us as investors and founders focused on your area to get real-time feedback on your company, product, or service, along with building relationships with us in real time and get exposure to our live audience. And a big thank you to the LATOKEN team and Maria for making VCTV possible every single day. With that, I'm your host, Kyle Ellicott. Let's go ahead and get started and introduce all of our panelists today. Gianpaolo, first and foremost, it's a pleasure to have you back. A little intro and a little background.
Thank you very much, Kyle. Welcome, everyone. My name is Gianpaolo Parigi. I'm a venture capitalist. I'm an investor in renewables and the green economy. Have done so over the last 20 years, actually 23 years, investing in biomass plants and the solar energy. And I'm also on the board of American Colonial Capital, which is a hybrid private equity group out of the United States. I'm the chairman of our single family office in New York, and on the board of various other VC entities around the world in India and Singapore and in Europe. Welcome, everyone. Kyle, back to you.
Thank you, Gianpaolo. Ifran, welcome back to the show as well. We talked a little bit about today's topic just a few days ago together, but I know there's so much more to be had, and pleasure to have you back. A little intro and a little background for everybody.
Thanks, Kyle, and thanks everyone for tuning in to today's episode. Sounds like we're gonna have a fascinating episode. We've got a pretty good panel over here. My name is Irfan. I'm the managing director of Irfan Holdings. I specifically focus in early stage investments, also mainly in the cutting edge technology research and development side. And of course, sustainability is one of those key verticals that I've always been looking into and have been working extensively in this area, especially in the area of energy generation, energy storage, among others. And would love to speak more about this. Back to you, Kyle.
Absolutely. And speaking of energy, perfect transition to our next guest. Tolga, welcome back. The man behind EV, everything electric. This guy knows it all. Tolga, welcome back. A little intro, a little background for everybody.
Thank you, Kyle. Thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be with you again. I worked for companies like Spin Master and Electronic Arts in the beginning of my career. I founded a technology development company called Thunderbolt, which was primarily working with digital startups in Los Angeles. Eventually, our platform got acquired by a Canadian investment company called New Wave Holdings. And under my leadership, the company made multiple investments into emerging industries like esports and mycological industries to psychedelics. In 2019, New Wave became a publicly traded company and listed at the Canadian Stock Exchange with the ticker symbol SPOR. Myself, after taking a short break during the pandemic, I joined an EV charging technology development company called Loop. Our website is evloop.io. We are building a new one. You can also follow us on social media. I am the vice president of Loop. I help the team with design and marketing. And I'm going to tell you more about what we are doing at Loop during our conversations. And thank you again. Yeah.
Wonderful. And thank you for joining us. And next up, Telly, welcome back. It's a pleasure to see you again as well. A little intro and a little background for everybody.
Thanks, Kyle. So I'm Telly Onu. I live in St. Kitts and Nevis. So the Caribbean, as you know, is highly vulnerable and very relevant to the topic today. A little bit about my background. I'm actually a climate finance specialist. I specialized a couple years ago. So I'm a digital economist. I also work in the area of digital transformation. And now with climate over the years, I have been applying techniques of transformation governance to helping in the transition to lower carbon emissions, as well as addressing adaptation, as well as resilience programs. I do so for enterprises as well as large entities like governments, and help them also on the policy side as well. In the last, I would say a few years ago, I would have been involved in incubator/accelerator program for the region, where our focus is really on scaling up, developing the pipeline, because we have a serious issue when it comes to pipeline, developing the pipeline across the Caribbean for CleanTech startups. So whether it's water efficiency, renewable, different types of renewable energies, specifically solar, some wind, biomass, I'm kind of interested in that. And then even to things that are more resource efficient, even agro-processing, climate smart agriculture, stuff like that. So worked on that for a number of years, and then eventually started focusing on the gaps. Specifically, main gaps we observed is where digital is concerned. There is a gap between leveraging technology holistically and digital technology specifically to all the actions, implementing climate actions. As you know, data is a big thing that is needed. And so what we have been able to then apply our methodology for building digital financial market infrastructures to be able to come up with a framework as well as a solution set that will allow for scaling up climate finance. So that's me wearing my hat as a co-founder for Beyond Capital Markets, and also as a co-founder for Prouse Labs, which is a fintech incubator. It's a lot.
It's wonderful. It's so much experience. It's wonderful. It's just enough. It's just enough. And thank you, Telly. And last but not least, Gary Fowler, the Grandmaster of Artificial Intelligence himself, joining us in a physical form today. It's amazing to see you, Gary. A little intro, a little background.
Yeah, great, Kyle. So my name's Gary Fowler, and I started getting interested in climate change about 25 years ago, actually. I had the pleasure of working with a person that was at Princeton with Einstein, that was in his 80s at the time. And a friend of mine had founded a long-range weather forecasting company, and Dr. Crick had developed a new model using weather as recurring patterns, but not linear patterns. And so I spent almost 8 months with him. He was at Caltech. He's a founding founder of the meteorology department at Caltech, worked on Operation Argument, and the invasion of Normandy. So this guy was so rich in history. I mean, I was blessed to be able to be around him. But I understood then when he started talking to me about how global climate, the warming of the globe, was going to change things dramatically over time. And then he started to show me models of those changes. I understood that we were in for something. This is before people were really talking about it. This is like 1995, right? So I was fascinated by it. And I had a chance to, be with him, day to day. And so he mentored me, taught me, and helped me understand the impact. So I'm a serial entrepreneur. I've done 16 companies. I'm in artificial intelligence right now. I'm deeply into quantum computing and now cybersecurity and quantum computing. Love the idea of sustainability. I mean, we've got 4x increase in the population of the planet. By 2100, we'll be at 13 billion. We've got some serious issues. I just watched the special, I don't know if you saw it, with Dave Attenborough talking about his life and how things have changed. I don't know if you've seen it. It's incredible. And we've got less land than we had. We've got to be a lot more efficient. We've got electronic vehicles by the year 2040 estimated at 57% of all vehicles worldwide. So we've got some things to take care of on this planet. I remember your friend, Christopher Altman, told me, the astronaut said, when you look at this planet from space, it's a soul-searching experience, and it changes your view of life to how small we are compared to the rest of the universe. And so I understand that, that sustainability is critically important, and it's no longer a linear economy. We need to have a circular economy. And I'm fully supportive of those endeavors, and always looking for ways that we can help with artificial intelligence to make those kind of dreams come true.
Wonderful, and welcome, Gary. And talking about that full circular economy, and we've also looked at this from a supply chain perspective as well, and the idea of these flexible, full circle supply chains, and thinking climate first in building those future supply chains as things are changing and adapting. But with each of you, you all have so many different perspectives. And looking at this, I'd love to just hear your take as to where currently are we around clean tech and sustainability. As I mentioned, Union Square Ventures, Jeff Bezos, and many others are starting to change their investment thesis for future and current funds to start investing around these areas specifically, and at the intersection of technology playing a role and impact in their future as well. And so we'd love to hear from each of you your current state and current view of clean tech and sustainability, as we'll refer to it for the rest of the show at a high level. And Gianpaolo, let's kick it off with you.
Yes, well, that's a wide topic as any, probably. Well, let me try to, put it under a roof and make it, something easy to chew, on this panel. I think that we finally reached an inflection point where there were basically two categories of investors. Those who did believe, for whatever their experience was like, Gary has mentioned, that the planet was one and needed to be preserved, and those who didn't really believe or care for it. Now we have reached a point in which every major investment effort, directly or indirectly, is targeted towards the preservation of our environment, as I say, directly or indirectly through the use of the adoption of technology. And anyway, this will produce an unprecedented positive result, obviously, because, regardless of the fact that people are really motivated, or they felt that they have to become motivated because everyone else was going in the same direction, I take it as a blessing anyway, as a human being and as a citizen of the planet. And as an investor, I find it exhilarating because, as I say, there is going to be a massive amount of capital with just as massive deployment of technology, artificial intelligence, probably playing, if not the predominant role, a key role in what's going to be acceleration at breakneck speed on the whatever implementations we do on the field. And I think, we are opening the floodgates, and now the capital has to go into efforts into ventures, into projects that are, as a bottom line, I would say, sustainable. And this is beautiful because it's not pep talk anymore. It's not only people paying lip service to it, it's really happening. Hopefully it will be, soon enough that we can avoid some of the major collapse issues that this planet is facing with global warming. And, we've been talking in other panels a lot about industrial reshoring and onshoring. I personally believe that if the seas do rise, as they actually have been predicted to rise over the next 50 to 100 years, we'll have to displace probably more than 2/3 of the world population from the shores as we know them today, more inland. I mean, this is already, I think, that's the name of the game. That's a mother of all battles that the humankind has to face, because this is not going to be happening overnight. And I think we should begin to take it and to acknowledge that we have to do something on it. I know it's a titanic effort, and people maybe could be derisive of this effort at the moment, because it is still debatable the amount of rise that the oceans can achieve. But if you think just 3 feet, 1 meter, how many kilometers or miles of land it will bite off and away from where we have megalopolises, where we have infrastructure, airports, ports, where we have telecommunication, power plants. I mean, think this of each of any of your countries, and you will see the level of engagement that we need to deploy, both in terms of scientific knowledge, logistics, expertise, government leadership, and capital. Last but not least, capital. So I think we are living on the verge of a very particular moment in history of humankind. And again, it's beautiful to be here, but we have to raise to the occasion, and everybody has to play their part, and do what it's demanded of them. So I think it's great, and I'm looking forward to hearing your comments on these. Actually, all of you.
Yeah, and thank you, Giampaolo. I want to turn over to Telly. I saw her shaking her head left and right, up and down, in agreement with you. So
I was nodding.
You're nodding. So anything to add on Giampaolo's point there?
Yeah, I mean, it is, as he said, an inflection point. It's really at a boiling point now, where I think, as he says, within the investment space, the lines have started blurring between people who focused on impact and those who are, in private equity and the others, because climate risk is a financial risk. I mean, just think about a catastrophe, whether it's a hurricane. And these days, have you noticed the hurricanes are coming further inland to places that never ever were even zoned for hurricanes? So you have a sizable investment within your portfolio, and whoosh, the next day there's a hurricane and wipes it all out. I mean, what does that do for your return? So it is a significant financial risk, and it's something that you have to take seriously. I mean, I think we're at the point where we have to go beyond ESG measures. ESG measures for me is just a very nice checklist. Oh yeah, environmental tick, governance tick. But when you actually drill down into the portfolios, you don't necessarily see a reflection of impact that actually is transformative. So I think we could borrow what we've seen in the era of digital transformation. It's really the same thing. It is. It's just that it's not necessarily digital based. It's still dealing with technologies, and technologies causing different transformations or enabling. Technologies could be put in place to enable different transformations, whether it's to mitigate or to foster a new adaptive style. So for me as well, while a lot of investments, when you start looking at the concentration of investments in the area of green tech, climate, or whatever you want to call it, sustainability, it's always been focused on energy. Why? Because you can measure what you can measure, you can actually implement. But the other things, it's like so vague. And as a matter of fact, looking even at the pandemic situation, it's a health crisis. A health crisis is a climate crisis. So I think one of the issues is there is a knowledge gap for the investors, not even the startups as well, but investors as well, to truly understand what this whole space means, what the issues are. And the reason it's so complex is because you have that additional global governance component where policymakers are doing their own thing. They speak a totally different language from actual investors. So there's a total disconnect when they're like, okay, we need funds, but then on the other side, they haven't like structured properly. They don't understand the languages. So there is a need, I think, for everyone to have a much better understanding of what this complex situation is. It has many different layers, and it really is about not just about energy, because the concentration is in energy. Yeah, the world, it's been heating up. We have to lower the temperature, but let's face it, even with the temperature as it is now, lowering it is just one area of intervention. There are other ways that you have to focus on. The reality is, I live in the Caribbean. We hardly emit carbon. We're probably a less than 0.05% emitter of carbon when you compare it to the global world. But we suffer all the impacts, like first. So in our case, it's okay what you're doing, but what you're doing isn't gonna work fast enough. From a maybe from a financial perspective, where the use of fossil fuels is kind of expensive. Okay, fine. So it's really economics that determines us moving towards more renewable energy and stuff. But from a climate perspective, it's really about how do we adapt to this new crazy reality. It means we have to scale up investments in the infrastructure and the housing, and all use as much of the technologies to create a much better sustainable future before we become climate refugees, right? And then how do we make ourselves more resilient to the crisis? So it has to work in tandem, and a lot of the chunk of investment had been pumping into energy. But like, I'm excited for things like green bonds and stuff, because now unsustainable linked bonds, because it can now bundle things together. You know, to make it has to also be financially feasible, obviously.
Right. And thank you, Telly. That's a perfect transition to you, Efron. Anything to add around Telly's point, but also what are you seeing in your focus around energy and how that is currently looking today and is impacting in what Telly mentioned?
No. First of all, thank you to John Paulo for giving a full-fledged philosophical viewpoint about the topic, and then Telly kind of like emphasizing on the current state as well as the action items that we need to be looking at. For me, I want to talk more around a couple of things, as more on the activation side. So I'm gonna stay heavily focused on the science of it. Right. So energy is one part. The other part is data. And Gary rightfully mentioned it's a topic that we yesterday discussed while we were talking about quantum computing, is around meteorology. And I think that's also relevant. Now, but also the context of the era that we are in, the pandemic, and the potential, this cloud that's hanging over us around the economic kind of situation that we have globally, is another of the reason that some of the funds have again started taking this initiative. I would, take us about 10 years ago, 2008, after the 2008 financial crisis, most of the large funds took this similar initiative to have heavy focus on clean energy products, which led to, and I'm sure Tolga can speak more around that, around the the creation of the the batteries, as well as the electric vehicles that we are so commonly talking about. Now, even then, all these things, the transformation that has happened, in reality, that there are situations that's behind it. So let's talk about lithium batteries, or batteries, for example. Are they really sustainable? Where is the green energy coming from? That's number one. Two is that lithiums, you depend heavily on cobalt. Cobalt, as you may know, comes from one place in the world, almost, and that's the Democratic Republic of Congo. And if it's coming from there, there are other aspects of it. So when we are talking about climate change, we are talking about green technology and sustainability. We're talking about the other factors also, the social responsibility, as well as how it's being obtained. The reason why we need to be talking about that is that we need to break out from that thinking in terms of looking at a product independently or individually. We're talking about a package situation. When we're talking about a end product, let's say if it's a battery in this case, we need to be thinking about what is the economic impact of that, what is the climate impact of that, what is the social impact of that, what is the even I would say spiritual impact of that. I mean, everything is relevant, because that's really where the word of circular economy or sustainability comes down to. Because sustainability, if you want to think about sustainability, you got to think holistically, and there are multiple variables to it. In terms of the science, now, of course, a lot of green believers would be against me in this one, but as you may know, I am a strong proponent of nuclear energy. And the reason is itself because again, let's break it down to the science, right? Whether we have a demand right now, and we are living in a world, whether you have attitude change, whether you have, great political change and all these things, it's not going to change the fact that, just like you mentioned, and Gary mentioned, population is growing, we have energy demand, technology has advanced, the technology has its own demand. So the energy needs must be met. And the current alternative energy is not going to cut it. The science is not there, and frankly speaking, no matter how efficient you make it, let's say even if you make it 99.99% efficient, is not going to cut it. So it's a pipe dream to think that that's going to end up delivering you the end goal. Either you got to look into a completely different technology, or a technology that we have come across. Of course, we have. And that's the case with any technology, that if it's used in a wrong way, or there are effects of it, but in the right way, there are good effects of it. I mean, nuclear science have given us nuclear medicine, and that's making treatment. So nuclear energy, statistically speaking, has been able to provide cleaner output with lesser accidents than any other energy source. And I don't want to go too much into it, but there are energies of that that has been worked on, whether it is miniature nuclear fusion reactor, miniature nuclear fission reactor, and of course utilizing nuclear waste for energy deployment. These are possibilities, and these are possibilities that can actually make us meet some of the demands that we are talking about. The other aspects of it is data, and which we can talk about more. But on the energy and the science side, I'm going to be sticking to it. Unless we're making any disruptive change in the technology and a new technology forming, which is a possibility, we can start working with the ones that we have, and that can make sense to us. For the demand that we have to meet, and we have to come to terms with that. Yes, we had an evil brother, but we can transform that. So that's what we got to believe in. So yeah, on to you, Kyle.
Thank you, Efran. And Tolga, I want to transition over to you around this topic of energy and let you continue the conversation.
Sure. I mean, yeah, I think this pandemic has been changing so many things, and I think the biggest change is in the electric vehicle transportation industry. I mean, can you imagine like how much pollution is going to be prevented by just switching to EV charging, EV electric vehicles? I was just talking to one of my friends yesterday, and I was mentioning about like this electric vehicle technology actually was there 100 years ago, or solar energy technology was there 100 years ago. But, you know, as a human society, we didn't choose to take that path. We took the path of least resistance, and we went with fossil fuels. It's extremely easy to make money out of it because you just take it out and refine it, sell it, and it's the easiest product in the world. And so many people got extremely rich, but in the meantime, the world unfortunately didn't come to the point that we were actually imagining what it could become in 2020. Right now we're dealing with a pandemic. There's a huge concern for the climate and the rising sea levels, and it's all connected to the pollution that we have been dealing with fossil fuel that is brought to in our lives by the fossil fuel industry, from plastics that harm our environment and the oceans, to the cars, the energy of the cars that they're consuming, and the petroleum. Everything has been made by most of the stuff that we use in our daily lives has been created out of fossil fuels. And this is changing. This is hopefully going to change. As myself, I'm extremely excited to be in an industry that is changing the world. EV charging is I think, to me, it's literally changing the world. And this is the biggest change in the industry, in the energy consumption, energy industry for the last 200 years, since the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, technically. So I think the future is gonna be hopefully cleaner, and we all have to participate into this. We all have to really take some kind of accountability, like every one of us, every single person, because I think this is the, you know, as a human society, from different colors, from different backgrounds, different histories, but we all, you know, have to come together and work for one mission, which is, you know, preserving the planet. And we have to work on things that are, you know, helping entrepreneurs who are, you know, dedicating their lives for sustainability. I think sustainability is an extremely important word. I think it's the word of the 21st century, and I think we should definitely take it very seriously. Entrepreneurs should be very motivated to work in this industry, because there are going to be so many incentives, government incentives and related stuff. We have those incentives in our EV charging industry. Most of the stuff, most of the chargers that we are installing, they're actually free because the California state is paying for it. So there are very minuscule, you know, payments. But overall, to sum it up, like in my opinion, I think, you know, everything happens for a good reason. The pandemic was tragic, but I think it gave everybody in the world a wake-up call about, you know, we need to change things, change the way of we are thinking. And I think I'm at least happy to see this and also be a part of this change.
And thank you. And Gary, I want to come down to you. I mean, we've touched on so many different areas, but also the commonality here has been around data. And, you know, how does technology intersect with this and actually push us forward in some way? We spoke about quantum and AI and blockchain yesterday, powering some of these areas. We'd love to hear from you, your view of not just all this, but again, how the data is going to be so beneficial, and how AI, quantum, and the others can really push this industry forward as Tolga mentioned, sustainability is here to stay, and it's here to stay for us in the next decades ahead, as it's going to be an impactful thing in all of our lives.
Well, I mean, the thing is, the damage that we're doing today won't impact us. It takes 25 years or 30 years, right, to really, I mean, one of the things, Kyle, and we've talked about this on previous shows, the Himalayan mountains have not been seen for 30 years in India. And because of the pandemic and people being locked down, we've been able to see it. I mean, this is really a wake-up call for all of us, each and every one of us. I remember, I told you about Dr. Crick. I remember Dr. Crick told me some things, and he quoted, one was Einstein, and he said, when the bee population decreases by, decreases, we've got 4 or 5 years after that to live. And if you look at, there was just for the audience, in 1860, there was an explosion in Timor, Indonesia. And that explosion created a traumatic impact around the world. People immigrated from Europe to the United States. It actually snowed in New York in the summer of 1816. Actually, would be a great movie. It was The Year Without a Summer. And people migrated from Sweden to the middle of the United States. It's one of the reasons for mass migration. But what happened is about 200,000 people were killed. In fact, Mary Shelley wrote Frankenstein on Lake Como at Lord Byron's house, Lord Shelley's house. During that time, she was 18 years old. They had a contest because it was so spooky, because there was ash like you've seen recently with the fires. So this is a kind of impact that can have on our lives. And this is really a wake-up call, the pandemic, on how vulnerable we really are. And we haven't even seen really, this is not the worst thing that could have happened. But look at this from just some statistics. The average sea level by the year 2100 could be up 39 inches, a meter, over 1 meter. Now, if you get coastal places in Florida, New York City, et cetera, we're going to be flooded, right? The other thing is, I remember Dr. Crick telling me, when the Gulf Stream slows, this is when it's going to be a problem. I said, why, Dr. Crick? And he said, because the food supply is going to change, because it doesn't circulate enough. And so this whole food chain is going to change. There won't be enough food. It's slowing down, right? So these are the kind of impacts. I mean, we don't want to talk about it. In fact, in Florida, I don't even know if they admit it today, but they were saying it doesn't exist, climate change. I mean, it's insane. So these are the kind of things. Now, when we use artificial intelligence, I mean, on one side, we can do all kinds of very interesting models. We can have IoT sensors everywhere. We can have buoys in the oceans. We can, monitor, but it's not about monitoring. It's about taking action to cut the stuff. I mean, look at the circular economy. It's so crazy, Kyle. And we've talked about this before. When you throw plastic away, every piece of plastic has a little number on it as to what kind of plastic needs to be circulated where. I don't know if you're like me. I don't know if it's a yellow bin, the blue bin, the green bin. Honest to God, I mean, it's confusing because I don't know which bin to put it in. Of course, I put plastics as much as I can in the bin, but part of it's our own problem because we thought about a linear, non-circular economy. We got to think about, listen, we can't waste this stuff anymore. We got, the millennials are pissed off. My daughter is a 25-year-old working in New York City for a 3-letter computer company that does AI. I think you know who that could be. And we get in arguments because she said, you guys have wrecked the planet, and yet at the same time, so we need to make these changes now. And so in terms of AI, of course, we can develop incredible models. Of course, we can have sensors everywhere, but it doesn't make a damn bit of difference if we're not changing what we do.
Right.
We're all guilty of it, right? You know what I mean? And the challenges in our life, now that we're going to be living to 120, 150 years old, we're going to be here a lot longer. I mean, part of the challenge has been we're not here that much time and we don't really care about it, right? But in reality, we had better care because it is changing. I mean, the climate, I had a house, I just sold my house in Pennsylvania, and the climate has so dramatically shifted that there's like not snow in the wintertime. It's like crazy. And I don't mean one winter, I mean many winters. So these are the kind of changes taking place. I remember Dr. Crick told me, and I refer to him all the time because he said, I don't know anybody else that had studied with Einstein, right? and had done, and really was the father of one part of long-range meteorology. And he was telling me, he said, you know, Gary, he said, you know, you've got the bees, you've got the climate change, the warming. He said, but think of the impact. He said, you're going to have glaciers melting into the water. You're going to have the salinity of the water change, which is going to change. And this is back in the 90s, right? This is going to change all the food supply. And I'm like, yeah, right. At the time, oh my God, he was like right on target with it, you know? And so then he was talking about hurricanes. He said, Gary, and we haven't seen it yet, you're going to see 200-mile-an-hour hurricanes. He said, they're going to be so destructive. We've never seen anything like this before. And it's going to be happen sooner than later. And at the time I thought, oh, come on. And he said, frequencies will go up. Guess what? Frequencies are going up and straight the hurricanes are going up. So, you know, it's incumbent on each and every one of us to not just talk about it, to take action, right? And now's the time because it's going to affect us 30 years in the future. So yes, data is important. We need to have sensors out there. We need to understand, you know, and use the technology, but action is the most important thing now.
Absolutely. And I want to throw it back to Gianpaolo. It was a great question to everybody and so many insights, but we are close to time. So I want to make sure everyone gets in their closing thoughts as well. And also where you can be found to continue this conversation. It's obvious that this is not something just to be talked about, to Gary's point, but action has to be had. And there's a lot of action to be had and a lot of opportunities to start making action in. But with that being said, Gianpaolo, I want to throw it back to you to add anything on, but then also your closing thoughts as we come to wrap here to make sure everyone gets in their time and where people can find you to continue the conversation.
Yes, thank you. Well, I think we have to muster all our courage, knowledge, capital, and for once, I think we should really steer clear once and for all of conventional wisdom and demagogy. I definitely echo the comment of my fellow panelists on nuclear. You know, I've been investing in renewable, okay? And I do believe in the green economy. I mean, I've been investing, as I say, 23 years ago, I did the first biomass plant in Italy, you know, and I did solar over 10 years ago. But I can tell you that this is not the complete answer because we need to activate whatever we can activate as quickly as we can activate it. Nuclear energy, it's one of the items that we should consider. We should not have you know, tunnel vision and think that because we have to be environmentally friendly, we cannot have a technology that, given the use of adequate technology and controls and governance in stable countries, cannot be very safe compared to what it has been maybe decades ago. And it has been quite safe anyway. Of course, one mistake can, you know, wipe out a lot of the population of an area, but still, I think it's very safe now, and there is even the studies and the pilot projects on miniature nuclear plants that are very, very interesting, you know, and hydrogen, everything that we can use. Because let's put it in the context of solar energy. You know, what I've been doing, for example, investing in solar parks, you know, to feed with energy with solar park town of 25,000, you would have to mount panels on an extension the size of the city of Paris. So the technology is, you know, leaping forward in great, gigantic leaps, but sometimes it's not enough. We need to corral all the different types of technology that we have available and try to use them with our best, let's say, discriminating intelligence, knowledge, and localization competence that we can deploy, but we have to have that because, for example, in Europe, which has been the key market for the green economy, and I close on that, you know, we were investing on solar. The state, you know, the feed-in tariff was 600% the price of the free energy on the market. And that's why so many investors went to these sectors, 600%. So basically we were generating revenues with a summatory of two components, A plus B, A being the free market price of the energy and B being the feed-in tariff given by the European Union government at 600% increment over the baseline market price of the energy. Now, is this sustainable? Yes and no. It has allowed many countries, Germany, Italy, the Czech Republic, Spain,
to meet their quota with renewables. In fact, to well exceed those minimum quota. Italy itself produces over 50% out of renewables. The quota was minimum threshold was 25%. So, but again, it is not, there's not only one aspect. We are looking at the prism, and we have to take a look at and tackle the problems holistically. So definitely, as I say, make recourse to everything that we have available. And as Gary said, activate ourselves, because monitoring is good, but we need to take action and begin to correct. Because even if we correct whatever we can correct, the effects will be seen, the positive effects, only decades down the line. So it may be too late for a lot of things. I'm Giampaolo Parigi. You can reach me on LinkedIn, on giampaoloparigi1@gmail.com. And happy to be here anytime with you. Kyle, back to you. Thanks, everyone. And happy Thanksgiving for those of you in the States.
Thank you, Giampaolo. Thank you so much. Tolga, I want to come to you next. Closing thoughts, and of course, where can everyone find you online?
You can reach me online by from my LinkedIn, Tolga Onuk. My website is tolgaonuk.com. And closing thoughts. I mean, this was really a nice panel, and people have been talking about really like important things. And I think, you know, for me to add, like, I think right now, because of the pandemic, there are a lot of people could be unemployed. They might be, you know, looking for jobs. I encourage people to, you know, look for jobs in the technology, renewables, and sustainability, clean technology industries. You know, I think this is the future, and I think it's definitely gonna grow from here as we are developing some kind of consciousness around clean environment and protecting our planet. So that's one thing that I can tell to everyday people, and also for entrepreneurs. I think there's great amount of liquidity in the market. New ideas and new projects that are around sustainability can gain traction very quickly if there's a feasible business idea behind it. Because building something sustainable is not easy, and not everybody can do it. So if you have a great idea, and if experiment, it's also working, this is a time to look for investments, because like I said, there's so much liquidity in the market. Finally, I wanted to tell everybody that, you know, please check our website, evloop.io. Our company is one of the fastest growing EV charging networks in the United States. And I think it's going to be really fantastic in the next couple of years. I'm very, very excited to see the growth. Right now, they're predicting the EV charging industry to be 17, 18, or $20 billion in the next few years. And can you imagine, this is only with 1%, less than 1% EV electric vehicle adoption globally. So this is going to go to literally trillions of dollars. And I think this is a very interesting time for everybody to be involved in this very exciting industry. Yeah.
Absolutely. And thank you, Tolga. Telly, to you. Closing thoughts, and where can everyone find you online?
Okay, after all my colleagues, I hear you, Gary. My son says to me all the time that we've really messed up this world. He's going to be 22. For them, they deeply, deeply believe in the world. And I think their involvement is actually pushing us to kind of make a change as well. And I see people his age, or startups that start early his age, are actually getting into the clean tech space. So you're going to see a lot more younger, more enigmatic people that have a vision trying to solve a problem. For me, my takeaways are just like what Giampaolo said, indicated. There is a space for nuclear, but the reality is, how many of us can actually put nuclear into place? I do know some countries in emerging markets, like in Africa, they actually have a small nuclear facilities setting up to kind of study and manage and train. But if you're looking at small island developing states, nuclear, I don't think, is a feasible option to look at. But we have other options like geothermal. And obviously, one of the big challenges, again, with any of these technologies is at the early stage, it does require some investment and sometimes some investigation because it still isn't proven as yet. So obviously, those projects do need to be scaled up. We do need to find ways of crowding in private investment, partnering, whether it's through PPPs and those type of structures. Then there's also scope for adding additional digital technology layers. So it's not just about the data, it's about how do we learn from what we've done for digital transformation and improve efficiencies in a lot of these processes. I'm really excited about EV from the perspective that EV can actually create a new alternative capital market. The sort of derivatives I could see coming out of that, whether it's carbon credits or energy certificates that are all digitized and tokenized, that can create a whole new market space. For those who are looking at the space, you might not necessarily be a traditional clean tech or hardware, because the thing with clean energy, it comes with a lot of hardware. But if you're in the space of fintech and other type of financial technology, there are many options for you also and opportunities within the space. So I'm really excited with the potential for unlocking new markets. Those new markets can increase new types of liquidity, leveraging even technologies like blockchain and digital assets, tokenization. You can now create different type of bonds, sustainable linked bonds, green bonds, and all those type of new solutions for climate financial innovations can actually streamline and increase the amount of financing we have. It's a lot. The opportunities are huge, but we have to find ways of scaling up in a way that we never have. I see a big opportunity on the clean tech side for hydrogen. And hydrogen also from the perspective of when we're looking at the circular economy and looking at sustainability specifically, how are we, as we are transitioning and using all these new great green, lovely technologies, how are we addressing the existing industries that kind of generate a lot of the pollution? Oil, ammonia production, methanol production. All of these industries also need to be more leaner and efficient. So I have seen opportunities there where you can actually incorporate and embed some sort of efficiency measures so that you can at least lower their carbon emissions, as well as then leveraging things like carbon capture and stuff like that. So I'm looking, it is positive. Lastly, before I go, you can reach me on LinkedIn. It's TVO. And we have actually a new program in the area of digital financial market infrastructure management for climate finance. This is for both investors, so if you're in a family office, or even for startups who want to understand how to manage this whole complex system and create new value. We're enrolling. Meet us at altschool, ALTSSCHOOL.co. And we're enrolling for January and February. So our January program is embedded finance, our February is for climate finance. So.
Wonderful. Thank you, Telly. And Ifran, I want to come to you quickly for closing thoughts and also where everyone can find you as well online, as we're just about out of time here.
Thanks, Kyle, and thanks, everyone. So before I go, you can reach me over at LinkedIn at Sheikh Mohammed Irfan, and also over Twitter, Semper Irfan. So I'm going to pick up from just one point from Gary. So wherever Gary and Telly is, I'm just starting. I'm a new father. I have the birth of my daughter right in the middle of the pandemic this May. I also have a deep background in work around the research and cybersecurity, where I believe on proactive approach versus reactive approach. So I don't want to be in a situation where I have to answer that question, that what have I done for what's happening around the world. So I want to be more proactive than ever, because really the future of our world depends on how we act right now. On the basis of the state of the market, both on the industry as well as the investment side, of course, apart from all the things that I do, a lot of people might not like me because I am the diligence guy. I've been the principal diligence person when it comes to some of the TRA funds, also when it comes to the technology and aspects of it. And frankly speaking, the ecosystem attracts a lot of garbage, excuse my language. And that kind of garbage, it's not necessary, and it's driving us away from the real problem that we are trying to solve. So if you really want to make things happen, understand the problem. As Telly was telling, each situation is different, each country is different, each region is different, and it requires different forms of solution, which can collectively make sense with, of course, information and data. On the other hand, on the investor side, you got to believe in it. And I have been called upon on various of those work. And two of those, I'm just going to mention the places, but not going to mention those projects. I'm sure you people are aware about that. One is a Middle Eastern country, another one in West Africa, who's called me for various of these programs that they're trying to. But at the end of the day, it's not what they truly believe in, what they're trying to create. And I think this is very, very important. I got dirty laundry on all sides of things. So I'm not going to talk about those things. But I would say that on the investor side, especially, when it comes to alternative energy, as well as sometimes, interesting energy like nuclear energy and other places, of course, certain places, some of my real good fund partners here in Switzerland, as you may know, they're very active in the space. However, are spooked out by some of the, technologies, for example, nuclear technology, among other things. So again, it requires collective understanding. It requires a consensus to how we want to motivate and bring about things. So I would say, we're not at the end of the road. Technology is there, and we're working on it, and we're going to make it happen. My suggestion to everybody, whoever is working in this space, there's a book that I read. It's called Science, Order, and Creativity by David Bohm and David P. I would suggest you read that. It's a very interesting concept. Apart from the philosophy of things, it will help you understand and charter to the next stages of, the challenges that we are coming across. So that said, thank you so much. And thank you everyone for making this happen. And thank you for tuning in. On to you, Kai.
Wonderful. Last but not least, thank you, friend. Gary, quick closing thoughts. Where can everyone find you?
Yeah. I mean, what is it? Nike says, just do it. So I think that's where we are. There's been a lot of talk, but we around the world, we got to take action. You can reach me on LinkedIn, Gary Fowler. You can reach me on Twitter, Gary Fowler. You can see my shows, Gary's Picks or GST Presents, now every week, and getting incredible guests. In fact, one of them is going to be one of the billionaires is going to be talking about space in a not too distant future. So stay tuned. So there's a lot we can do. Let's stay positive, go through this pandemic, and let's make the world a little bit better place coming out of it. Thanks, guys.
Absolutely. And a big, again, thank you, Tolga, Ifran, Gary, Gianpaolo, Telly. Thank you so much for your time today here on VCTV, but also your insights and expertise shared with everybody. Ifran, I did share the book with the chat, so I'll also share it in the show notes afterwards. Thank you for that. And to you, our audience, thank you so much for tuning in. If you like what you heard, click subscribe, give us a thumbs up. Do reach out if you'd like to be on a show like today and join our outstanding guests as well. Thank you, Gianpaolo. Thank you, Gary. If you'd like to be on a show like today, do reach out to the team and or myself. We'd love to fit you with the right set of outstanding guests around industries, topics, and regions around the world. Also, entrepreneurs, there's a space for you here on VCTV to get up on the virtual stage, pitch us as investors and founders focused in your area, and have the chance to get real-time feedback, build relationships with us, and exposure to our entire live audience. And a big thank you to the LATOKEN team and to Maria for making VCTV possible every single day and bringing us all together in this virtual room that we have every day, all day on VCTV. With that, I'm your host, Kyle Ellicott. You can find me everywhere at Kyle Ellicott, and all of our investors and guests today online 24/7, 365. Reach out and make sure to add context when you do. Everyone would love to hear from you. And with that,